Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte coeur.
Here we are, continuing a late night into the next morning. I always say to the members, let's see who can hoot with the owls and soar with the eagles early the next morning. And they are there on the floor with our appropriations bills. I just want to start off the morning to say that Leader McConnell seems to take great pride in calling himself the Grim Reaper. It's part of his political campaign. It's part of the pride he takes as leader of the Senate. And as you see what he wants to bury, none of these things are going to pass. They won't even be voted on. So think of me as the Grim Reaper, his own quote. He wants to bury the For the People Act for cleaner government, the Equality Act for ending discrimination against LGBTQ community, dreamers, and to protect our dreamers and TPS recipients, paycheck fairness, equal pay for equal work, gun violence protection, common sense background check legislation. He's burying that. Climate action now. Climate action now. Let's bury that. Save the Internet Act, the net neutrality legislation young people are so concerned about. The Violence Against Women Act won't even get a vote. Lowering health care and prescription drug pricing won't even get a vote. That's what he said about our agenda, which encompasses most of our early legislation on what we promised for the people. To lower the cost of health care by lowering the cost of prescription drugs, by building the infrastructure of America in a green way, and in doing so, increasing paychecks, lower health care, bigger paychecks, cleaner government. Not even going to get a vote. Again, public sentiment is everything. President Lincoln, the Senate will certainly be hearing from the public on issues, values really, that have bipartisan support across America. This is our attempt to find our common ground. So many of these issues, whether it's gun safety or violence against women in the rest, rank very high across the board, across party lines. Right now, I'm very proud that on the floor of the House, as a former appropriator, the Appropriations Committee is putting forth legislation that reflects our values to meet the needs of the American people. Already, we've addressed issues like raising the funding for the National Institutes of Health, investing further in early childhood education. We are talking about, and that's in Rosa DeLauro's bill, Health and Human Services and Education and Labor legislation. We heard from Mr. Speakeasy on the defense bill. So we're talking about a strong America, strong in our national security, our national defense, and strong in the health and education and well-being of the American people. I would love just to read to you all the provisions of the legislation, but they're there for you to see, and we'll be talking about them, enlarging those issues as to what they mean to the American people. So that is part of our legislate, investigate, litigate agenda.
It is Friday, the 14th of June of 2019, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. It's been quite a week, folks, quite a week. And we deserve the French 77s that have been meticulously put together for your imbibing enjoyment. Virtually so, the recipe can be had. In fact, I should post my recipe and it's, don't let my mom know. But it's kind of, it's not a cheap drink even at home, okay, because it's Saint Germain. It's not, but, it's good to have in your cabinet. Everybody needs to have some Saint Germain, please. But regardless, I'll post that recipe so you can have a quite elegant drink and enjoy life as life should be enjoyed. Now, listen, I should remind folks that even if you drink once a week, only on the weekends, that could still be considered habitual use. So do take care. And I might also mention, for those of you who have not heard, the French 77 is a fairly potent drink. So take care with that. One will make you happy. 1.5, you may need some help standing up. And more than 2, you're going to need some help sitting down because it might hurt otherwise later. Not at the time, you'll be numb. But later, when the feeling comes back, ooh, yeah. Also, drink plenty of water. All right. Well, those are all obvious tidbits of advice. Right now, we are concerned about Donald Trump just proclaiming that for all this time, think of this. In the beginning, it was like, it never happened. Never met anybody. Don't know a Russian. Even though he's got I know. There's actually, last I heard, and this is a little hard to pin down. But I have to say normally, because I worked in real estate in various capacities, from developing all the way in the office. And property records are property records. Of course, LLCs and other things are meant to. Now, initially, what they're supposed to do is spread out risk, take away risk. I mean, if you have one partner who may not have, the greatest credit history in the world, if they go under, they don't take you under. Okay, you can separate the liability of financial risk of your partners. That's what LLCs, I always thought, were supposed to do. But then they're used to basically hide who is the true owner of the property, which is patently against the law from where I come from. So I guess they do it. But regardless, it's a bit difficult to track down all of the ownerships of properties, condos, little small factories, big mansions, whatnot, in the Trump orbit. But what can be tracked down, the number of Russians that own properties is in the thousands. And I'm not talking about Russian American citizens living here. I'm talking about, back there at Gorky Park. Okay? And so to say I don't know any Russians, and everybody says it's stupid. You've been selling Russians property for years. Everybody knows it. I mean, look at Palm Beach. I mean, Jesus, they call it what, Little Moscow at this one little corner over there. So now it's from I don't know any Russians to I'm going to do it again, and you're not going to stop me. And it won't just be from the Russians either. It's an all-comers. Hey, it's an open bid season. Come on. Yikes. All right. Well, that's why I'm a champion of small business. Because normally, small business, you don't lose your morality and sense of community and shall we say, patriotism to the pillars of democracy because you have so much money you don't need to care anymore, if you ever did. So, I don't know. I like small business much better. It does seem to, keep you a little bit more grounded. Seem to be. All right, what's on the rest of the menu here? Well, that was Nancy giving the press a tour at the top of McConnell's graveyard where bills go to die. He said that's where they go. On the rest of the menu in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Oh, my brother's friend, Duncan Hunter. Yeah, they're friends. Eek. Well, his wife pled guilty to conspiring with him to steal campaign cash. Duncan's still in denial, but I think that he'll be denying, behind bars. Right after Trump said he wouldn't report foreign interference if it happened again, the GOP blocked a bill that would force campaigns to report foreign interference to the FBI because they keep saying, how many NRA laundered Russian rubles are in the GOP's campaign funds? How many? And even some GOP senators want to stop Trump from selling arms to Saudi Arabia. Uh-oh. It's falling apart. After the break, we then move to the chef's table, where Britain's special forces shift away from counter-terrorism work and instead concentrate on blocking covert operations by Russia. It's happening really around the world, and other governments are taking proper measures. And Southwest Airlines extended flight cancellations of the Boeing 737 MAX through 2 September. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish of the page is the chat room link monitored by Kelly Link. And thank you, Kelly, for taking care of that. To the leftish of the page from the chat room link at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com is the link to our Patreon account. And if you could please become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, your recurring contribution assures that Resistance Radio continues resisting, as we have for the last 8 years, 24/7, 365. One of the hardest working little networks out there in online land. So thank you for your generosity. It helps pay the bills, and once again, we are in the midst of acquiring funds to purchase newish machinery, as we did about halfway through this endeavor. And your generosity, once again, assures that all of that happens, and we would truly be unable to do it without you. And thank you very much. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, it is so simple. Just go to @NetrootsRadio. Tom takes care of that, and we are forever indebted to that service that he gives because, hey, he's Tom. Follow me on Twitter @JusticePutnam. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Codes about 10 minutes before showtime, and then scramble, of course, to get those links out on social media. Follow the show on Twitter @CookbookWest and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever fine podcasts can be found. Might be mixed in with all the rest because they are. They're all there, all of them, every single one. Not just the fine ones either, but that's okay. It's good. Well, on the local front, I really believe that, well, let me just say quickly. I read Thomas Merton, and I never heard of Ayn Rand until I was really, you know what? I read Heinlein before I read Ayn Rand. So, but I had read Merton before all of it. And I will admit that those types of readings at an early age might influence one. So the idea of quiet, contemplative solitude mixed in with a public endeavor as well. I mean, solidarity and solitude, community and contemplation. We need time for both. Merton was embodied that completely. And he professed and promoted the idea of love with a capital L. And since he was a Trappist monk, of course, that L was associated with Jesus Christ, which was the perfect embodiment of the capital L to that contemplative sect. As well as, most of the religion, one would say. I mean, I don't know about Opus Dei. I think they're too materialistic, shall we say. Not really contemplative and meditative practice at Opus Dei. Yeah, they might have some rituals. I don't necessarily think it's contemplation that they are ritualizing, though. So Merton had a profound impact. And the idea of loving your neighbors and not holding their backgrounds against them was a very important part of living together. And probably, when you live in a monastery, I've had some small experiences in my endeavor as a youngster, aspiring to the priesthood. So I know a little bit about what it is to be sequestered. I know what it is to have a rigor in a practice. So in a monastery, it's not all in your little cubicle contemplating. There's also work to be done, not always with a capital W. Usually just regular work needs to be done. And you got to learn how to get along with a lot of people. And, you have this unifying aspect, though. You're a community. And that community is predicated upon L-O-V-E with a capital L. Now, when I grew up in Oregon, there was a concept called the welcome wagon. We were a part of it. I remember, my mom and family were doing a welcome wagon sort of thing before it ever became an official welcome wagon. But yeah, members of the family actually were devout members of that welcome wagon organization. It was truly a true organization. And what was it? Well, when new people moved into your area, usually, that first night or first week, they're not provisioned very well. And so you brought them over, some food and things to be able to get them through that first day, few days, a week. You welcome them into the neighborhood. So we've always done that in some fashion. Checked in with the new neighbors. Hi. When we moved here, same thing happened here. So that's what community is. And I have to say that in my conversations with many people in town, I can tell very quickly where their political bent is, somewhat maybe of what their background is, what their temperament can be. I don't care. They're my neighbors, right? But online, people do get quite vociferous, maybe much more so than when sitting face to face, or maybe elbow to elbow, hoisting a beer or some other libation. When conversations among neighbors devolve into accusations of trolling and baiting, and then any type of attempt at reconciliation is construed still as trolling and baiting, I think maybe it's gone too far. And maybe some sincere, heartfelt, personal involvement might be in order. We're in a small town. How do you avoid it? I prefer to get along. And another thing, message boards are usually, about sharing. And I think, in short, what I'm hoping for is there are some diehard right-wing conservative folks. I've only lived around them most of my life. Not these particular types, but, I've lived in rural areas. I worked on the family farm back in the Dakotas. My God, I'd go into places where there'd be signs saying no Indians allowed. This is into the late 60s, into the mid-70s even. Worked on a couple of logging crews that seemed to be fairly conservative with the team. Worked for, as in a supervisory position and in production and exploration for Gulf Oil for quite a number of years. Not really considered a workforce full of flaming liberals, shall we say. But when you got work to do, sometimes not always with a capital W. Or W, depending on where you come from. What side of the creek you come from. When you have work to do, the proof is in the pudding. Okay? Some people make good team members and some people don't. And people who make good team members who can be trusted do the job regardless of their other team's backgrounds or whatever, animosities. You do the work. All right? I think also, in short, it's so much better to love your neighbors in spite of our disagreements. We don't have to be critical of ourselves and everything and everyone all the time now, do we? No. Okay, enough of that. Let's get into this first offering here, and it comes out of Share Blue Media, Dan Desai Martin. Now, when I said my brother is friends with Duncan Hunter, I remember Duncan Hunter's dad. And to be honest with you, Duncan Hunter's dad was quite a dick. I sat on a clean air advisory committee, inter-city, complete county agency. Just as I was getting out of high school. I graduated early from high school, but I wanted to stick around so that I could try to play one more season of football after a debilitating shoulder injury and surgery. Because I wanted to damage myself some more playing college ball, which I did. Or tried to do. Tried to play college ball, but I still was able to damage myself some more. So I was successful at part of it, at least. But, I sat on this inter-agency, inter-county clean air advisory committee, and Duncan Hunter's dad was quite a dick. Look, I'm not the only one that had that assessment. Everybody did, even his friends. But, Duncan, I never thought about Duncan. I think when I was that age, Duncan Hunter was probably still not even starting grade school, maybe. I can't think that he was like around. I think my brother's older than he by a few. But regardless, my brother had some beach property, and my brother is a man of some means. And their circles Venn diagrammed, and there they were. So, maybe more acquaintances than true friends. Because, really, what are true friends? Margaret Hunter, wife and former campaign manager for Representative Duncan Hunter, pleaded guilty to one count of criminal conspiracy related to allegations she and her husband illegally used campaign funds to subsidize a lavish lifestyle. I gotta tell you, I lived in Laguna Beach. I had some property at the top of Arch Heights, up Bluebird Canyon Road. A tiny little Eichler-like, not an Eichler. I wouldn't have been able to afford an Eichler real, but an Eichler-like abode that when you looked up towards Costa Mesa, Newport Beach, you could see the point there at Balboa. It was very pretty, the way that the car lights snaked around Coast Highway around Dana Point. It's so beautiful. And that was back in the day when Laguna Beach was just full of all the most aromatic medicinal and loving. I just love the smell of eucalyptus. I just loved it. And Laguna Beach was just full of it. Now, at the top of Arch Heights, we didn't have as much of that there because it was a little bit more chaparral-like, as the coast tends to be, or coastal, shall we say. But you could smell the eucalyptus waft up from the library even. And it was just so lovely. But because Laguna Beach was so inundated with all of that eucalyptus, it's a highly flammable oil and pitch that it has. And so Laguna Beach burned a couple of times until, get rid of the eucalyptus. But I had actually moved from the area when that really big conflagration occurred and that destroyed the structure that I had lived in. Very, very sad. I've written about that place and other accounts of my little writing space there and my surfing forays out of that space. But so when they rebuilt, they became mega mansions. And Laguna Beach, even though it might have been always somewhat Tony, where that part of the coast is, those beaches, it was still affordable. Even on a guy working in supervisory position for a major oil company. And and my space was small, but it was very lovely and well appointed, architecturally lovely. It was Eichler-like, big tall windows and airy, had some good appliances, and I loved it. But I could afford it too, but at some point things get too pricey, even when you've grown up there your whole life, as the Hunters had, and having a lavish lifestyle in that part of the beach takes a lot of money. Lots. So apparently Duncan wasn't able to, have other sources of income in which to support this lavish lifestyle. So dip into the campaign cash. Now, both Hunters had previously pleaded not guilty to a 60-count federal indictment related to misuse of campaign funds. Now, she could face up to 5 years in prison and a fine of up to $250,000. That's $250,000, by the way. And she's set to be sentenced on September 1st. Wow, that's a lot of S's in one sentence. Wow, okay. According to the indictment, the Hunters used campaign funds for a variety of personal expenses, including family trips to Europe and Hawaii, a shopping spree at Disneyland Star Trader Shop, more than 24 shots of tequila, and a steak at a bachelor party. Okay. A plane ticket for the family's pet rabbit. Oh, I remember that one. And personal expenditure he claimed were for wounded warriors. Yikes. That's almost like stolen valor, isn't it? Except it's stealing their money instead. I fully accepted responsibility for my conduct. I am deeply remorseful, and I apologize. I am saddened for the hurt I've caused my family and others, Margaret said after the trial in a statement read by her attorney. Now, of course, Duncan, as in his, I don't know, maybe it's in their genes. And I don't mean their pants. I mean in their genetic structure. Maybe there's some little slip in the double helix there. Because he's doubling down. He says it's sad that they were able to bludgeon her, they being Democrats. He thinks that the prosecutorial structure in San Diego are Democrats. Give me a break. Democrat is just code for anybody they disagree with, like fake news. It's not fake news. It's you reported on things I don't like. Okay. He also said he looks forward to going to trial. Well, so do we. In the past, Duncan Hunter blamed Margaret for any potential wrongdoing because, I don't know, maybe that's in the Hunter makeup too. Don't ever take responsibility for everything, but do blame the little lady. I'm gone 5 days a week. I'm home for 2, and she's the campaign manager. So whatever she did on that will be looked at too, I'm sure. But I didn't do it. Wow, he just sent his wife to jail. I wonder if they were having problems at home. Duncan still serves in Congress, even though he is out on bail and awaiting trial. His next court appearance is July 1st to debate various legal motions, according to the San Diego Union Tribune. Wow, we've gone halfway through the show, and we still have a lot of show to go. This next offering is also out of Share Blue Media by Emily Singer. You know, right after Trump said that he would not report foreign interference to the FBI if it happened again, and also invited it, by the way, Senate Democrats attempted to pass legislation that would help protect elections from foreign interference, but were rebuffed by Republicans who quickly blocked the attempt. Mark Warner tried to get the Senate to take up his bill that would legally require campaigns to go to the FBI if a foreign government or power offers information meant to influence a political campaign. Now, it's already illegal to do this, I should mention. This is a bill to really set it in writing in stone, so to speak, in the Senate, to get it on record. Now, of course, the bill is in response to Russia's nefarious interference in 2016 and is even more important in light of Trump's admission that he would not report any attempts at foreign interference to the FBI. So Republicans led by Marsha Blackburn immediately blocked Warner's attempt to get a vote on the bill. Now, Blackburn's objection is that it's just too broad. You're saying that, like, any hostile foreign government, not just any hostile foreign government, that's just much too broad. Can't have that. Well, the Senate is the graveyard where bills go to die, says the Grim Reaper, Mitch McConnell. Mike Stankiewicz of Share Blue Media brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. Trump's reckless disregard for humanity and congressional authority has forced even some Republicans to act. Are they really Republicans? Well, I think so. You got Senator Mike Lee. He's going to vote in support of 22 disapproval resolutions, each of which will block one of Trump's arms sales benefiting Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. 4 other Republican senators, Paul, Graham, Todd Young, have already signed onto the proposal to block the arms sales, which total $8.1 billion. I wonder what Trump's commission on that is. The resolution, also supported by all 47 Democrats, guaranteeing that they will have the simple majority needed to pass. The measures will then be sent to the House, which is also expected to approve them. Democrats and a handful of Republicans expressed anger when Trump used an emergency exception to bypass congressional approval for the sales with a country as inhumane as Saudi Arabia. Look, as I keep telling everybody, they're not content to just fly jets into our buildings and our Pentagon. Trump wants to sell them the nuclear power and energy in which to do it, well, shall we say, more efficiently. All right, let's get to our break, and when we get back from that break, we're going to go through weather from around the world and finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, not your father's old McDonald. Since at least the Industrial Revolution, social observers have used the term alienation to describe the roots of humankind's problems. One area in which that alienation has been acute has been man's divorce from the natural world's mechanisms for maintaining life, nowhere better exemplified than in food production. Enter the new movie Biggest Little Farm, produced by and starring the well-connected nature photographer John Chester and his wife over 10 years. It documents their journey from their cramped Santa Monica apartment to being successful organic farmers. With their sustainability guru Alan, they take a 240-acre parcel, destroyed by industrial monocropping, and turn it, after well-documented reversals, into a model of diversified farming. We meet Emma the pig and a cast of thousands, mostly four-legged, as the Chesters and their crew use what's known as biomimicry to achieve balance between ducks and snails, chickens and coyotes, etc. And it's all beautifully done. But all is not as it seems. It's obvious that mountains of cash are being expended. There's an early reference to blowing holes in their budget, explained only by the fact that there are, quote, investors. But wise ones apparently, as eggs from Apricot Lane Farms, the name of the project now, are coveted by Hollywood food elites to the tune of $15 a dozen. Emma the Pig now has a kids' book series, and then there are the movie receipts. What's missing is a plan for scalability and its inevitable associated politics. The electric vehicle of 50 years hence won't be a hand-built Tesla, and agriculture then won't look like the Biggest Little Farm. But if you're an urban-dwelling person who eats, this is the model and the movie one you and your kids should see. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Annie Sneed. Plastic is lightweight, malleable, durable, but it has also become so widespread that it's ending up in a lot of unwanted places, including our own bodies. That's according to a new study which found that humans are consuming a shocking amount of so-called microplastics.
Microplastics, the kind of current working definition, is plastic less than 5 millimeters. So people commonly equate that to something like a grain of rice or a sesame seed and down in terms of size class. I will say that most of the microplastics that people are interacting with are quite a bit smaller than the sesame seed size, which I think always kind of shocks people when we start talking about the numbers, because they kind of can't, they can't see a lot of these things, at least with the naked eye.
Kieran Cox, a PhD candidate in marine biology at the University of Victoria in Canada, and one of the authors of the study, which is in the journal Environmental Science and Technology. Microplastics come from numerous sources. They can be shed from larger plastics, or they may have been designed small to begin with. Further study, Cox and his team pulled together past scientific literature that calculated the number of microplastics in things we commonly consume, such as in tap and bottled water, sugars, seafood, even in the air that we breathe. This analysis helped them figure out the baseline amount of microplastics that people are consuming every year. They couldn't include common foods like beef, poultry, vegetables, and dairy in their analysis because data on them doesn't exist yet. In fact, their study could only account for 15% of people's caloric intake. Even missing the majority of what people swallow, the research revealed that, at the very least, humans appear to consume somewhere between 74,000 and 121,000 microplastic particles every year. That number goes up for people drinking bottled water rather than tap water. Now, is all this plastic safe to ingest? Scientists simply don't know yet.
This is kind of the first estimate of dose, you could say, right? So if you're thinking in terms of toxicology and ecotoxicology, dose is a very important factor to think about. And so this kind of presents the first estimate, but it is very much a underestimate because of what we don't know.
Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Annie Sneed.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Here's the story of deep fakes, also known as how the Russians are upping their electoral interference game.
I'm Baratunde Thurston from The Onion, and also, mother. You're listening to the Civil Liberties Minute with ACLU attorney Bill Newman.
The chair of the House Intelligence Committee has made public the fact that the Russian government appears intent on influencing the 2020 elections in the United States. This time, not by releasing stolen emails and other documents, but rather by releasing fake videos, known as deep fakes. Because carefully crafted, controversial fake videos are highly disruptive and hugely influential, and if carefully created, extremely hard to prove that they're fake and nearly impossible to prove who made the video. Reflect on the recent fake video of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, which is known as a cheap fake, really low caliber, and look how much currency and traction it got. Imagine what a high-quality, well-placed deepfake could do. As Adam Schiff, the head of the House Intelligence Committee, said, I cannot imagine anything more corrosive to a democracy than in an environment where no one can tell what is true anymore. You simply retreat to your tribe and view everything as true or false, depending on what party or what group you belong to.
The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1924. 300 members of the International Workers of the World, or Wobblies, gathered at their union hall in San Pedro, California. They were holding a benefit for 2 of their members who had been killed in a railway accident. For the past year, the KKK had targeted the San Pedro IWW members. The Wobblies had led a strike of longshoremen the year before. Famous socialist author Upton Sinclair had visited San Pedro to address the striking members of the Marine Transport Workers. Known for his books such as The Jungle, Sinclair wrote novels depicting the harsh conditions of industrial work. To begin his speech, Sinclair planned to read the Bill of Rights. As he was reading the First Amendment, the one guaranteeing the right to free speech, he was arrested by police. The police and KKK members continued to harass the striking workers. Even after the strike ended, anger against the IWW simmered. That anger boiled over when KKK thugs stormed the benefit meeting, beating IWW members. They tarred and feathered some. They also flung scalding hot coffee at 2 children, who had to be hospitalized due to their injuries. A photographer who captured images of the injured children wrote a description of the events. Andrew Kruglis, age 9. Is in serious condition. He was the first one out of the hall. As the fiends came rushing in, Andrew ran as fast as he could for a block when overcome by a man in blue who threw a pot of boiling grease on his bare legs. In addition to the injuries caused, the raiders also destroyed the contents of the Union's Hall. The violence at San Pedro was just one chapter of ongoing harassment against IWW organizing up and down the West Coast. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
I read the news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
Explosions crippled 2 oil tankers in the Gulf of Oman on Thursday in what the United States called attacks by Iran. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said that American intelligence agencies had concluded that Tehran was behind the disabling of both ships. Then they released what they say is compelling evidence. Video footage of an Islamic Revolutionary Guard patrol boat pulling up alongside the Cookbook Courageous, one of the stricken ships, a few hours after the initial explosion, and removing what American analysts believe was a limpet mine. Iran responded via Reuters, quote, "We are responsible for ensuring the security of the strait and have rescued the crew of those attacked tankers in the shortest possible time." Foreign Ministry spokesman Abbas Mousavi is quoted as saying, "Obviously, accusing Iran for such a suspicious and unfortunate incident is the simplest and most convenient way for Mike Pompeo and other U.S. officials. These accusations are alarming." Meanwhile, the owner of the tanker shown in that video, Yukaka Katada, speaking at a press conference in Tokyo on Friday, contradicted Mike Pompeo and the U.S. Navy when he said his ship was attacked on the starboard side by a flying object, not by a mine. Quote, "It seems that something flew towards them. That created the hole, is the report I've received. It seems there was a high chance they were attacked by a flying object. The impact was well above the water. I don't think it was a torpedo." The Japanese ship owner did not say who might be responsible for the attack. I say, beware of an administration looking to change the news narrative, and I'll remind you of a tweet Donald Trump sent back in 2011 that warned, quote, "In order to get elected, Barack Obama will start a war with Iran." Just saying.
I'm glad to go. I cannot tell a lie.
Thursday brought with it the announcement of the imminent departure of White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Thursday also marked the 94th day since Sanders last appeared behind the podium in the White House press briefing room. Meanwhile, the U.S. Office of Special Counsel, no relation to Robert Mueller, says that White House advisor Kellyanne Conway should not work for the government anymore because she violated the Hatch Act by using her platform to attack Democrats running for office and advocating for Republicans during TV appearances. The Hatch Act is a 1939 law that bars federal employees from engaging in partisan politics while serving in their official roles. The White House, of course, pushed back, saying Conway's actions aren't violations, and the final decision on her job rests with the president, anyway, who is unlikely to remove her. The reverberations of Donald Trump's interview with ABC's George Stephanopoulos continue. Democrats attempted to pass a bill in the Senate Thursday, making it illegal for campaigns not to report offers of foreign assistance to the FBI using unanimous consent. But Marsha Blackburn objected.
These reporting requirements are overbroad. Any person who shares their views with a candidate would be reportable. Campaigns could have to report social media responses or interactions. You would report every non-U.S. citizen or dreamer who volunteers for their campaign or knocks on doors or even knocks on the door of a foreign national.
Senate Intelligence Committee ranking Democrat Mark Warner is the one who introduced the legislation, and he pushed back on Blackburn's false claims.
I would point out that her reading of my legislation is not accurate. The only thing that would have to be reported is if an agent of a foreign government or a foreign national offered something that was already prohibited. And candidly, if and I will take my colleague at her word, if there are ways to improve on this legislation, I'm wide open for business.
And The chairwoman of the Federal Election Commission, Ellen Weintraub, weighed in. She released a statement Thursday making clear that candidates for public office may not receive help from a foreign government in what appeared to be a warning to the president. Tweeting her statement, Weintraub wrote, "I would not have thought that I needed to say this. Let me make something 100% clear to the American public and anyone running for public office. It is illegal for any person to solicit, accept, or receive anything of value from a foreign national in connection with the U.S. election. This is not a novel concept." End quote. Well, we've all heard the stories about Donald Trump not paying his bills. I guess that applies to his presidential campaigns, too. Last week, officials in El Paso, Texas, complained that they were still waiting for Trump's re-election campaign to pay up for expenses related to a rally months ago. It turns out 9 more cities haven't received a dime for similar charges. Prosecutors in Michigan dropped all criminal charges related to the ongoing water crisis in Flint on Thursday, more than 3 years into the investigation, saying that they would start from scratch and wage a, quote, vigorous pursuit of justice. Stay tuned. And that's just a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener supported, and I can't do it without your help. Find out more at NicoleSandler.com/donate.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 61 degrees Fahrenheit, slated for a high of 90. Yes, it's much cooler than it's been. We're going to have to put on a sweater pretty soon. Overnight lows will be in the low 60s. The winds currently are out of the southeast or east-southeast, and light and variable, 1 to 2 miles per hour. Will pick up to 5 to 10 miles per hour as it has been the last several days, out of the north-northwest, continuing so through the night, and then shifting out of the due north tomorrow at 5 to 10 miles per hour, with a slated high of 92 to 94. The weekend should be around that, and overnight lows once again will be in the low to mid-60s. Grass pollen remains very high locally. The air quality index is in the good range at 13 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is very high at 9, so take care. Wear a hat. I do. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 29.8 inches. Visibility is at 9 miles, and relative humidity is at 48%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 68 and mostly cloudy. Paris is 75 and mostly cloudy, and they continue to have a thunderstorm and electrical storm watch that could knock out the electric grid. So, wow. They usually have thunderstorms around this time of year, though they're more pronounced and resonating in August, not June. Rome is 92 and sunny with a heat warning. Kiev is 87 and fair. Kabul is 75 and partly cloudy. Hong Kong is 81 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 71 with a rain shower. Sydney, Australia is 55 and clear. San Francisco, California is 55 and cloudy with a small craft advisory on the bay and offshore. And New York, is 67 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property. And these people positively live around the world. Anonymous worker bees at Reuters bring us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Britain's special forces are about to shift away from counter-terrorism work and instead concentrate on blocking covert operations by countries such as Russia. Senior military officials are considering the proposal and are likely to recommend the government approve it. Britain blames Russia's GRU military intelligence agency for the poison attack on former Russian double agent Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia in the English city of Salisbury last year. So, of course, Russia denies responsibility because these poisonings and falls from 5-story windows and muggings are also so very convenient.
Je te donne c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Tracy Rusinski of Reuters brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Southwest Airlines said it was extending the removal of Boeing Company 737 MAX aircraft from its flying schedule through the 2nd of September after the plane was grounded worldwide following 2 deadly crashes. Southwest, the largest global operator of the MAX with 34 jets, had previously said it was canceling flights through the 5th of August. The revision is in line with American Airlines' recent decision to extend MAX cancellations through the 3rd of September from their initial cancellation schedule of the 19th of August. Airlines worldwide are awaiting regulatory approval for a software fix and then pilot training updates by Boeing that would pave the way for the jets to fly again after 2 deadly crashes in Indonesia and Ethiopia triggered a worldwide grounding. And I should also say, after this software malfunction has caused pilots to scramble to figure out what to do, and thankfully so many were able to not hesitate for the 7 seconds it took to prevent a catastrophic failure. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day and the week. But you know Netroots Radio broadcasts on. We'll meet up on Monday for River City Hash Mondays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night and all weekend. And happy Father's Day to all of you who are fathers and have dads. And we'll meet up on Monday right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre. Tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre. Tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.